We're about 300 miles from San Francisco. I just went on this trip on a whim. I had no hotels booked, nothing booked, no plans. I just went ahead and did it. Why? Because I wanted to. And my mind is just empty. My mind isn't worrying about the next thing. I'm just so fully with what is in front of me, and it's revealed to me how much of the actions that I would take on a day-to-day basis were driven by a pang. They're driven by this pang of fear, of worry, of justifying to myself, if I didn't do this, then everything in my life would fall apart. But going on this trip made me realize, when you trust the moment, things just take care of themselves. You know, I've already met so many wonderful people on this trip, and I know it's like, you hear all the time how, you know, you meet so many people while you're on a trip. But it truly is gorgeous, the fact that things just align. Things just happen outside of your conscious will that just, it's like they're happening for you. And that doesn't happen until you release that control. The whole irony of the thing is that you're gonna listen to this, just as I have listened to many videos that tell you, oh, release the outcome, let go of control. And then you're gonna try to let go of the control, and then try to release the outcome. But then that's still you trying to control the outcome by trying not to control the outcome. So this is the most ironic thing about the whole situation. Oh my gosh, we're about to enter some really cool looking trees. I think I'm gonna, since I'm filming myself talking, I'm gonna just meta glass these. Life works out in really funny ways when you let go of the agenda. You know, love happens, freedom happens, wealth happens. It's not necessarily a passiveness. It's a form of action that is effortless, where your actions don't arise out of anxiety, but from truth, from spontaneity, from trust, from overflow. And you find that you're actually way more effective when your actions arise from this place. You know, people will spend their whole life putting off what they want to do, and they'll come up with every single reason why not yet. I want to do this. You know, I've been thinking about this idea, and then they'll ask you without asking you, but do you think this is a good idea? Do you think I should do this? Without even realizing that energy of the asking for permission energy is exactly why they're stuck in the life that they're stuck in. And it's because they're still asking for permission from an external source outside of themselves. Whether it's somebody in business who's ahead of them, whether it's somebody of the opposite sex who they deem as higher value, you know, whether it's a company or a career or a position that's higher value than how they perceive themselves to be now. People go around asking, am I worthy of this? Am I worthy of this? Can I validate myself so that I can be worthy of this? Can I be worthy of you? And people are unaware that they play that loop. I mean, hell, I have to catch myself, right? It's like all of the things, the ugliness within everybody else is the same quality that is within us. When we're seeking externally, we're always looking to be validated for how we feel, for permission, to show that, we are okay the way that we are. But the answer every single time is back to yourself. Because, if you carry a lot of shame, then you're going to try to hide that shame. You're going to try to prove to other people why you don't carry that shame. And ironically, as soon as you do that, the excess potential of that shame that's driving you to try to cover up that shame and insecurity immediately reveals your shame and insecurity because of the way that you put in excess effort to try to cover it up. If there was nothing to cover up, if you were secure, if there was no shame to run away from, there would be no excess effort to try to not to cover it up. Let's just use some common examples. If I'm carrying around the shame that I'm not making enough income, guess how that will reflect in my actions? If I'm carrying around shame, and it's funny because we intuitively know this, and yet it's like, why are we so afraid of it? We intuitively know it. It's like our higher self knows it. But the part of us that wants to cling on to fear doesn't want to know it. Because that part of us actually wants to hold on to the fear. Because it can justify our circumstances and make us feel powerless. Another example, if I'm ashamed at the fact that I'm single, guess how my behaviors will manifest? In my confidence, in the way I show up, in the way I interact with women. Do you think I will be more needy or less needy? Right? Do you think I will be more outcome dependent or less outcome dependent? It's so funny, right? Because whether it's health, wealth, happiness, fitness, relationships, purpose even, as soon as you put on the excess potential, the excess effort of trying to grasp for it, trying to find it, trying to get the outcome, and obviously that's your ego working. There's so many words to get tangled up on, and I know like every time you bring up a flashy word like ego, everybody has their own conception of it. And if I am to go into a definition of the word in itself, that would be a whole nother like 20-30 minute rant. As soon as the ego or your ego, see, people will start arguing about whether it's incorrect to say your ego or the ego, right? But if you have to understand the message so that you can forget the words. Resonate with the truth so that you can forget about the jargon. When you're being driven by your ego desires to cover up an insecurity, right? To cover up a feeling you don't want to feel, and you start being like, okay, I want to cover this up at all costs. I must hide this. Nobody can know this about me. Therefore, I have to overcompensate. For example, it's like the super short guy who gets like super wide and bulky and jacked. And it's like, hey, we love you. But clearly to everybody outside of himself, you're overcompensating for how short you are. Right? You think that compensating with width and muscle is going to fill up that insecurity of the height. This is the part where, there's more nuance, because I say all of this, right? That nothing you ever do will be able to compensate for your insecurities. The external things you try to do to cover up for your internal insecurities will never work, fundamentally. How you dress might look better, right? And I'm saying dress, metaphorically speaking, in clothes, in your body, in your financial status, in your literal status, right? These are all ways of dressing yourself up. Putting makeup on, it's literally, it's putting on makeup, metaphorically speaking. Putting on makeup for your ego, putting on your costume, putting on nice clothes. But they never change the deepest truth of who you are at your core. And so the trip to hell is to get so lost in the ego world that you become a billionaire, but the only thing you know how to get a thrill from is to go on an island and do what billionaires do on an island. I've used that example multiple times in my various content, but I'll hammer this point down over and over again. That is what ends up happening when you chase your ego straight to hell. When you take pleasure to the ultimate extreme, that is where you end up. On the other hand, if you become too spiritual, you end up as a bum, a renunciate, somebody who is so high and above the material realm, they're just like, nope, I'm gonna go be a hobo, I'm gonna live under a rock, I'm gonna carry a backpack and hitchhike, I'm gonna own nothing. Now, this is not a value judgment. There's nothing wrong with that. Do what you have to do. Do what you feel is necessary in order to achieve the enlightenment that you're seeking. But at some point, you may or may not realize that this holier than thou attitude of, oh, I'm holier than thou because I'm broker than you, because I suffer more. I'm more virtuous than you because I'm willing to have less, and that makes me more virtuous. Right? When you're done with that trip, you realize that's a trip too. Then you come to the middle point. Why can't you have your cake and eat it too? Why can't you be ambitious but know that you are not your ambition? Why can't you enjoy material things while also enjoying the spiritual? This is when both worlds come into harmony with each other. You can be rich and still be genuinely humble. You can be a wise king rather than a tyrant. You can be wealthy from the service of abundance rather than from the scarcity of taking. And it's all a matter of perspective, because all paradigms, all ideologies, whether it's the spiritual ideology or the material ideology, the entrepreneurial ideology, they're all traps. They're all traps because they trap you in a frame of mind. The thing that is important always is that you never get stuck in an ideology, because all ideologies, all belief systems are only a half-truth, a quarter truth, a half-quarter truth. It's your job to pick out the truth in every single ideology and integrate that into you, so that you may combine all truths of the world and allow that to set you free. That's a high-level discussion. I'm gonna leave it off there. Reach out to me on Instagram if you want to chat further on this, if you're looking for one-on-one coaching. That way we can actually get into the specifics, because it's hard to talk about the specifics without like the specificity, right? Just know that all of it, it's like high-level principles first, And then from the high level principles, we can work towards the top down, towards the specifics, and how do we actually tangibly apply that rather than stay in the abstract, right? Because heaven needs to come down to meet earth, and earth needs to come up to meet heaven. Right now, what I'm trying to do is trying to bring earth up to meet heaven, right? That's half of the work. The other half of the work is bringing heaven down to meet earth. So, thanks for joining me on this one. It's currently day 4 of my trip through Washington, Oregon, California, and I'm sure I'll have put up a bunch of B-roll of the footage I've taken so far. But hope you're having an amazing morning, evening, night, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.